everyone, and welcome back to Between Two Worlds. I am your host, Annika, and first, I want to wish you all a happy new year if you chose to celebrate, and I hope it was in a way that was meaningful to you. I currently am enjoying the outside in the midst of a crazy, crazy rainstorm that we've had by drinking a very crispy Dr. Death. So, I have a very exciting announcement about me starting a Patreon, so I will leave a link now in my description and the show notes, and I hope you can all go check it out. Obviously, there's a lot of things I need to work on for it, but I am very, very, very excited to bring a lot of content there. Um, yep, this whole podcast thing has just really been pulling me deeper and deeper, and I think it's about time. So, thank you again. Today's going to be a little bit more of a relaxed conversation, I guess. I wanted to talk about dirt. I guess we've had a few, deeper discussions or episodes in the recent past, but I just am really craving to talk about dirt. I don't know why. It's been calling me, and, I find myself kind of in another flow with dirt magic at the moment, so it's a great time to yap about it. The dirt that we walk on, we bleed into, grow from, die in. As a practitioner, I'm sure you know all of the uses for dirt, or maybe you didn't know all of the uses for dirt, or at least that it is such a great and powerful thing to work with. But when we really get into the nitty-gritty, the more fine details, it becomes much larger than, what it seems, just dirt. It has the ability to simply just be the dirt that you collect and the ability to sort of grow into the most complex thing depending on where it came from, how you collected it, time of day, what grows around it, and much, much more. So it really has a huge history within open practices, cultural traditions, and their folk magic, and many closed practices as well. It has such a rich folk history because number one, it was just extremely accessible. Like most secrets within magic, the roadside weeds are more than just that. And the dirt beneath your feet is more than just that. And that's what we are going to dive into today. So, we're going to talk about why dirt is so potent, not just spiritually, but really practically. I want to talk about how to gather it, how to work with it, and really whatever more I could fit in here. So, let's start with the more ancient world. The Romans were doing dirt magic really long before modern folk traditions codified it. According to historical records and even archaeological findings, they understood that dirt from specific places held specific power. Dirt from battlefields was used for divination and for protection. They'd gather it and use it to understand outcomes of future conflicts. Dirt from temples or from sacred sites, from places where, important events happened. All of it was collected and used. And the Greeks were doing very similar work with necromancy. So, in texts like Pausanias' description of Greece, there are accounts of practitioners using dirt from graves to communicate with the dead, understanding that the earth itself really was this conduit to the underworld. And in medieval Europe, dirt showed up constantly in alchemy. In alchemical texts, particularly those from the 12th and the 13th centuries, they describe dirt as the prima materia, so the first matter, the base material from which all transformation happens. Practitioners, understood dirt as the foundation of this sort of great work. Certain types of dirt have even been recorded to be sort of this base for uh, the hallucinogenic plants that are recorded to be used within flying ointments. So there's dirt magic in alchemy that goes beyond just using dirt as a base material. In alchemical philosophy, more particularly, in documented texts like the Emerald Tablet and works by Jabir ibn Hayyan, I think that's how you say it. Dirt represents putrefaction, the breaking down of matter, the necessary decay that precedes transformation. And the alchemists understood that you can't just create the philosopher's stone without first allowing things to rot, to break down, to return to their base elements. And dirt is the process. Dirt is what happens when things die and they decompose and become something new. And the alchemists were working with dirt as a symbol and as a literal material, understanding that the transformation requires this dissolution. So, and then there is the bit of religious side to dirt magic when it comes to, the church really being obsessed with dirt, more in the sense of holy ground, consecrated earth, blessed soil, and really understanding that power of dirt so completely that they kind of had to control it. They had to make sure that only their priests could bless it, only their rituals could sanctify it. And then, obviously, as more folk practitioners started to use this dirt for their own magic, which is still very useful to this day, suddenly it was evil. Suddenly it was witchcraft, it was demonic. This is obviously a recurring theme. And the church blessed water on dirt. They created holy water by blessing earth and water together. Actually, I kind of have a funny story from this one time. I was gathering dirt from a church by my house, and coincidentally, a car pulled up behind me and gave me the fucking dirtiest look ever. It was kind of funny. you know, on top of it, I have a sticker on the back of my car too that says, honk if you worship the old gods. So, yeah, I think she definitely caught the vibe. And this part, I am not lying about. A few weeks later, they went through a little bit of construction. And by construction, I mean they literally fenced the entire property with locks. So who knows why? Definitely wasn't me. But I digress. So, really, beyond the religious stuff, there is also records, especially in the medieval times, uh, about practitioners writing contracts in dirt. Made with certain spirits or the devil at the crossroads, the witch's devil, written in this earth mixed with blood, which we see being recreated today. Some pretty famous inks call for those ingredients, but the dirt really stood for more of a conduit for binding agreements, for making things real and permanent. So there's also dirt magic for weather work, documented within these folk magic texts and grimoires, like the Picatrix. So really just understanding that the earth itself is charged with what goes on around it, like collecting it during storms or using it to influence the weather to call rain or to stop the rain, or even some records of gathering dirt from places struck by lightning, considering it to be incredibly powerful because it had been touched by a divine or a cosmic force. So, dirt magic can also be pretty relevant when it comes to creating puppets and effigies. You can mix dirt with other materials to create representations of people, kind of making this um, dirt or clay mud figure, especially if it's going to be one that is destroyed. But this dirt can also be used to ground the puppet. It can make it sort of more real. It can connect the puppet to the earth and the person that it represents. When you work with the puppet, you're working with dirt that had been shaped and charged with intention. Then there is dirt magic in celestial timing that most people don't think about, or maybe you do, but I feel like most of the time we're focused on exactly where we gather the dirt from, not necessarily the time. But dirt gathered during eclipses, during comets, during meteor showers, more specifically these celestial events, gathered at moments when the sky itself is doing something unusual. Practitioners can understand that these moments charge the earth. Understanding that gathering dirt at these times give it extra power that usually goes overlooked. Okay, so now let's try to cover or talk about every type of dirt that you might work with or want to work with. Obviously, there's a shit ton, and I'm not going to be able to fit every single one here. But for example, there's graveyard dirt, there's crossroads dirt, river dirt, bank dirt, dirt from specific places that hold specific power, which really could be anything. Seasonal dirt, the dirt from your own land, But I also really want to get into, using dirt, like in jars and bottles as even taglocks, and dirt for baneful work and grounding and protection. So first, let's talk about why dirt is so powerful. The answer, at least for me, is that dirt is this tag lock. It's a connection, it's a carrier of everything that happened in that place. Think about what dirt actually is. It's not inert, it's not dead, it's alive with decomposition, with the breakdown of everything that came before. It's got roots running through it, it's got the bodies of insects, blood of animals, the decay of plants, it's got the footsteps of every creature that ever walked across it. And it's got the rain that fell on it, the sun that baked it, and even frost that cracked it open. So when you pick up a handful of dirt from a specific place, you're not just picking up minerals or organic matter. You're picking up the essence of that place, the memory of it, the history of it, and everything that's happened there, I believe, is embedded into those particles. So really, this is why graveyard dirt became so central to traditions like conjure work and root work. And I know there's some touchy subjects when it comes to close practices. However, dirt has obviously been worked with and adapted throughout many different traditions. And I really see most resources when it comes to dirt magic within these more conjure focused books. And I really gathered that, these practitioners understood that dirt from the grave wasn't just dirt, especially from someone who does work within, the scope of necromancy. It is a direct connection to the person buried there. It carries their essence, it carries their power, it carries the weight of death itself, and that makes it incredibly useful for work that requires this kind of energy. Crossroads dirt, works the same way. A crossroad is obviously a liminal space. It's where multiple paths meet, where choices are made, where spirits gather. Dirt at a crossroads carries that liminal energy, and it carries the energy of decision, of transition, of spirits moving between worlds. River dirt is another example. So water moves, water carries things, water flows, and the dirt from a river carries that flowing energy. Upstream dirt carries the energy of going, of undoing, of moving toward the source, where downstream dirt carries the energy of moving forward, of things flowing away, of carrying things with you. And the dirt itself holds the directional magic of the water. So, dirt is this carrier. It absorbs intention, it holds energy over time, and it has the ability to be dormant or activated depending on what you do with it. So, when you're working with dirt, it's not just using it as this symbol of something else, it's more charging it with your intention. You're putting your will into it, and dirt, because of its nature, because of what it's made of, it holds that charge and it doesn't dissipate the way that some other materials might. It doesn't just evaporate or burn away, it sits there holding what you put into it, sometimes even for years. So, this is why dirt in jars works so well. You layer it with your intention, you seal it, and it just works. It keeps working, it keeps holding that energy. The dirt is doing the work for you day after day, month after month, sometimes indefinitely, depending on what you're doing and if you know what you're doing. But dirt is also this boundary. It marks territory, it defines space. And when you lay dirt threshold, you're not just putting dirt there, you're creating a line. You're saying, this is my space, this is protected, this is marked. And spirits understand boundaries made of dirt. Animals understand them, even people understand them on some level, even if they don't consciously realize it. And this is why salt lines and dirt lines show up so much in protective magic. They're not just symbolic, they're actual boundaries. They're actual markers. And dirt, because it's physical, because it's real, because it's connected to the earth itself, makes those boundaries real. In Appalachian folk magic specifically, you can see dirt mixed with salt at doorways and thresholds, but also red brick dust mixed with the dirt. That and these obviously aren't just decorative, they are workings. And it's really just saying nothing unwanted crosses here. It's a type of ward. And finally, dirt is a foundation. It grounds your work, it anchors your intention, and it connects you to the earth, to ancestors, and to the dead. when you work with dirt, you're working with something that's connected to everything that came before. So, as we move into the discussion of graveyard dirt specifically, obviously it's very powerful for ancestor work, especially if you can get dirt from a grave from a direct ancestor or, dirt from a chosen ancestor or spirit ally, but it is dirt that's been fed by the dead. It's dirt that's holding the bodies of your ancestors or whoever it is you are working with. It's a direct connection to them. And when you work with graveyard dirt, you're literally working with the foundation that this body is a part of. And this is very akin to why dirt from your own land is also so powerful for things like home magic. It's your foundation, it's the ground you stand on, it's the earth that's holding up your home, your family, your life. When you work with dirt from your own property, you're working with the foundation of your own existence. I will go back to more specifics when it comes to graveyard dirt when I talk more about the different types of dirt. But for now, let's talk about gathering dirt. The first thing to really understand here is that when gathering dirt, it's an exchange. Like most things, especially when you're gathering materia, you're taking something from a place, you're removing something that belongs to that land, to the spirits, to whatever lives there. And in folk magic traditions, especially, across the board, whether we're talking conjure Appalachian folk work, Latin American traditions, the understanding has always been the same. You don't just take it, you ask, you leave something in return. And this doesn't have to be elaborate, it doesn't have to be a whole ritual, but it needs to be intentional. Whether you go to gather dirt, you speak to the place, you should acknowledge what you're doing and should disclose to those spirits, to the spirits themselves, that, what you are going to do with the dirt, your intention for it. And you might leave a coin, some tobacco, some water, some food, something that really says, I'm not just taking, and you are sort of entering relationship with this place. If it is somewhere where you're going to be returning, I like to actually start to build a relationship with the place and not take dirt on my first time there. So if you do grab dirt without asking or without acknowledging the spirits of that place, you are most likely going to get dirt that is resistant to your work. You are going to get dirt that doesn't want to help you. But if you approach it with respect, if you ask the permission, if you leave an offering, you might just get the dirt that is willing to work with you. And timing can matter too. When you gather dirt affects what you're getting, it can affect it. Seasonal timing can be important. Like winter dirt has a different energy than summer. And, sort of this dormancy, and just talked about winter dormancy, it's contracted, holding things close. It's good for binding work, for preservation, for work that needs to stay quiet and contained. Where summer dirt is, it's hot, it's active, and it's expansive. It's good for work that needs to move, things that need to grow, and things that need to be visible. Whereas spring dirt is about emergence and new beginnings, and autumn dirt is about release and endings. So, time of day, when we talk about time of day and gathering this certain kind of dirt, dawn has the energy of the new beginnings. Dusk is the energy of transition and things shifting. Midnight dirt has the energy of deep work, of hidden things and unconscious, and even that liminality. Noon, like midday, has the energy of power and visibility and things being fully revealed, where different times of day can give you these different energies within the dirt that you're gathering. And this gets as complex as even down to the planetary hours and minutes, if you wish. So moon phases obviously have an effect. I'm not going to hook too much on this just because it's pretty traditional meanings. Waxing moon is good for building and growing, increasing. Waning is good for releasing, vanishing, and decreasing. New moon dirt is good for work that's hidden, that's starting in darkness, and really about potential. And of course, full moon dirt is for work that's powerful, that's visible, and at its peak. So the actual method of gathering can matter too. What you use to gather with, and how much you take, and how you store it. All of these things can have effect on the dirt. I'm definitely saying dirt a million times this episode, but it's fine. Some, people prefer to use very specific tools, like things that are more natural, perhaps a wooden spoon or even a silver spoon. your bare hands. The tool you use can add its own energy to the dirt. Iron tools can add protective energy, silver can add lunar. Your bare hands create this direct connection between you and the dirt. There's no one right way. It depends on what you're gathering the dirt for and what feels right to you. On a cheesy little side note, those like what's in my bag videos of celebrities? Well, I personally always keep a vessel and a gathering tool in my purse for material literally wherever I go, and a pen. And I personally really recommend that because there are times where I'm very, very thankful that I have that in my purse. You know, it's like those memes. If you were a video game character and you just die, one of my loot drops would definitely be like a plastic spoon in a small jar or baggie. I also have like a cane-toed leather coin purse that I keep certain things in. But anyway, how much you take matters too. You don't want to strip a place bare, obviously. It's pretty general rule of thumb when you're gathering anything. You want to take what you need and leave the rest. A small handful is usually enough, or just like a scoop. You can always gather more later if you need it. And taking too much can obviously disrupt the place, can even anger the spirits there. And how you store it can matter. Some people keep their dirt in glass jars, labeled and organized. Some keep it in cloth bags. Some keep it in loose, just like in boxes, or just plastic bags labeled. And the container you use can affect how the dirt ages and how it holds energy. Obviously, this is really getting down to the details and the specifics, but most of the time, especially in folk magic, it's just about using what you have. But glass keeps it visible and accessible. Cloth can allow it to breathe. Some dirt you want to keep fresh, so you'll use it within a few weeks or months, and other dirt you want to age. Like graveyard dirt, for example, often gets more powerful the longer that you keep it. At least I find that it can accumulate energy over time. And when you're gathering dirt, you should be thinking about what you're going to use it for in the act of actual gathering it. You should be speaking to the dirt about your purpose, to the spirits. You're not just mindlessly scooping up earth. You're obviously reaching out and building this relationship with it, or at least offering a relationship with it. And you're telling it what you need. You're asking it to work with you, even if it's just like quick jump out of the car and grab it. Then you should at least still be whispering to it. When you gather the dirt, just be present, be intentional, speak to the place, speak to the spirits, and let it know what you need and start that relationship before you even take it home. Okay, now let's get to kind of like the fun stuff and talk about the different kinds of dirt. So I'm gonna go back to graveyard dirt because I think it's like the most well-known dirt in folk magic, and for a good reason. It's obviously powerful as hell, but a lot of people, or people who are just getting into using it, don't really understand the fine print, I guess, when it comes to graveyard dirt. So when you're working with graveyard dirt, you're working with the dirt that's been fed by the dead. It's dirt that's literally physically holding the bodies. It's dirt that's been walked on by grieving people, by spirits, by the weight of loss and memory and death itself. And that's not something that you should take lightly. But not all graveyard dirt is the same. It's pretty infamous, or not really infamous, but you ken my meaning. Different graves have different energies depending on who's buried there and what kind of work you're doing. So if you're doing ancestor work, you want dirt from the grave of an ancestor if you can get it. That's a direct connection. That's dirt that's obviously holding your blood relative. And if you don't have access to a specific ancestor's grave, you can gather from any grave in a family cemetery or a cemetery where your people are buried, your kin, and the energy can still be connected to your lineage. Now, most people, or I have seen some people talk about um, if graveyard dirt is completely off the docket, if you're not using it from people that you are directly um, aligned with or related to that. I kind of just say that's bullshit, but I respect if that is what they follow within their practice. So I want to give an example of like the most famously talked about ones here. We see in lots of books and lots of videos even of recommendations of using graveyard dirt from someone for being strong and protecting and fierce for protection work, like a soldier, a police officer, or someone who was known for their strength and their willingness to fight. While that dirt carries the protective energy, however, I do want to say something that most people don't talk about. Even as police officers or soldiers are traditional for this kind of work, I have found just because they were a soldier or officer does not mean they were protective. Often, how we are in life translates through death. And to be quite frank, if that soldier had, issues with traumatic stress or the police officer was really just a fucking asshole, then their dirt will be null and void for that protective work. For me, it really is kind of like the hill that I will die on, that graveyard dirt, like work goes beyond just dirt work. It takes more than just collecting, and it really walks the line of just necromancy for me, in my humble opinion. But let's move on. If you're doing baneful work or serious binding work, you might want dirt from the grave of someone who died angry, who died wrong, who, has reason to want justice. This is serious work and it requires pretty serious dirt, and you're asking the dead to help you. And you need to be respectful of that. You need to leave offerings, you need to explain what you're doing and why, and make it worth their while, and even see if they want to be a part of it. Some practitioners specifically gather from graves of people who died violently or tragically or have been murdered, understanding that those graves hold different kinds of energies. Others can gather from graves of people known for their wisdom or their power. And this is where you're like, well, how do I know that? How do I know that they're known for those things? So that's where the necromancy part comes in. That's where the communication with the dead comes in, and the actual building the relationship. But the point is, you're choosing deliberately based on what kind of work you are doing. So when you gather graveyard dirt, you should always leave an offering, even to the cemetery itself. Money, tobacco, alcohol, food, all those things that are pretty traditional and not too specific, most of the time taken very happily from most of the spirits. Okay, back to crossroads dirt and sort of the crossroad as a liminal space. There, where multiple paths meet, there where spirits gather, where, the dirt at a crossroads carries all of this energy. And within a lot of folk work, crossroads dirt shows up constantly. It's used for communication with spirits, for liminal work, for binding, for crossing, for work that needs to happen at the threshold between worlds. And the crossroad isn't just a physical location, it's a spiritual location as well. It is a place where the veil is thin, where spirits are active, and where magic is very potent. So when you're gathering crossroads dirt, timing matters. You can gather it at midnight when the veil is thinnest. Obviously, we talked about dawn or dusk or any of those liminal times of day that really exemplify the whole liminal part of it. And gathering during specific moon phases can help you if you work with lunar energy. A four-way crossroads can be considered more powerful than a three-way crossroads because there are more paths, more possibilities, more energy. But a three-way crossroads is still powerful. The point is you're gathering from a place where multiple directions meet, where choices are made, where energy is concentrated, and you can even specifically connect the amounts of roads on the crossroad itself for your working. Crossroads dirt is really good for things that need to move in multiple directions at once, for works that involve communication with spirits, for binding work that needs to hold someone at a crossroads, like unable to move forward or back or make this sort of multi decision, really involving choices and decisions, and work that even needs to happen within a liminal space. There's really a lot you could take advantage here when it comes to the crossroads specifically. Now, back to the river dirt, because I really haven't heard many people discuss river dirt, and it can be pretty fascinating. I know most people are like, why can't I just gather the water from upstream or the water from downstream? Whatever. We're talking about dirt here. But upstream dirt is dirt gathered from the river going toward its source. Upstream carries the energy of going back, of undoing, of moving towards the beginning. If you're doing work that involves reversing something, undoing a situation, or going back to fix something, upstream dirt is what you want. It carries the energy of moving against the current, of going back to where things started. Now, downstream dirt, of course, is dirt gathered from a river flowing away from its source. It carries the energy of moving forward, of things flowing away, of carrying things with you. If you're doing work that involves banishing, that involves moving something away from you, that involves letting things sort of like flow out of your life, downstream dirt is what you want. And it carries the energy of that release of things flowing away from you. River mouth dirt is where the river meets the ocean. This is obviously extremely potent when it comes to liminal work. It's where fresh water meets the salt water. It's where the river ends and becomes something else. This dirt carries the energy of transformation, of endings that are also beginnings, of major transitions. It's powerful for work that involves significant change. So when you gather river dirt, pay attention to the water. Is it moving fast or slow? Is it clear or murky? Is it cold or warm? All of these things can affect the dirt. Fast moving water creates dirt with quick active energy, whereas slow moving water creates dirt with patient, steady energy. And the clarity or murkiness of the water can affect whether the work will be clear or hidden. Bank dirt is another pretty classic one too. It works on multiple levels. There's dirt from actual banks, from financial institutions, and then obviously there's dirt from riverbanks. Dirt from a financial bank carries the energy of money. You see this a lot in money spells or money bowls, things that involve commerce, financial power. It's good for prosperity work, for money magic, works for anything really that involves financial gain or stability. The energy of that place, a place where money is handled, where financial decisions are made, where wealth is stored, that energy gets into the dirt, which what can do good and can do harm. Um, if you really think about it, banks can give and they can absolutely take away. So I'll just leave it at that. Riverbank dirt is different. It's dirt from the edge where water meets land. This dirt carries the energy of the boundary between the water and earth. I don't know if you guys can hear the crows, but there's a hawk outside and they are ganging up on it right now. But, this is good for work that involves grounding, flowing energy, for work that needs stability, and work that involves money or resources that actually need to be held and preserved rather than just flowing away. So courthouse dirt is another one that, we say a lot. It carries the energy of justice, of truth, of authority, of law. It's good for work that involves justice, for work that needs to be heard and acknowledged by authority, even, and, maybe something that involves truth coming to light. If you're doing work that involves a legal situation, that involves getting justice, that involves truth being revealed, courthouse dirt can be powerful. Hospital dirt is tricky. It carries the energy of healing, obviously, but it also carries the energy of sickness and pain and suffering. I've seen some practitioners use it for healing work, understanding that it carries the energy of places where people get well, but I also know a lot of practitioners might avoid it because of the sickness energy. If you do use hospital dirt, be very, very clear about your intention. You're gathering the healing energy, not the sickness, unless that's what you want. Prison dirt is another one that we see a lot, which carries the energy of restriction, of binding, of justice, of consequences. Really, I find prison dirt is more on the consequences spectrum rather than justice. It's good for binding the cell. The work that involves restriction, for work that involves someone facing consequences for their actions, which can be used in tandem with courthouse dirt, especially depending on the working that you're doing. But it is pretty serious dirt that should be used, you know, just as seriously. Now, police station dirt carries the energy of authority and law and protection, but in a different way than courthouse dirt. It is more like um, protection from something, but you can also use it for oppression, depending on your perspective and your work. Now to sort of talk about the elemental dirt or more earth dirt, things that come from your genus loci. So, like forest dirt carries wild magic. It is very untamed. It's alive and with growth and decay and the cycle of life and death happening constantly. It's good for work that needs to be more wild, that needs to break free from constraints, that even needs to tap into a primal power. mountain dirt carries the energy of strength, the foundation of even endurance. Mountains are old, they're very solid, they don't move. Mountain dirt is good for work that needs to be grounded, that needs to last, that needs the sort of strength behind it. And finally, dirt from your own land, your own yard, your own property, or someone else's property carries your personal power. It's the foundation of your home. It's the earth that's holding your life, really. This dirt is incredibly powerful for home magic, for floor washes, for warding, um, for sprays, oils, lots of different things. It's, you know, good for protection of that space, for grounding the space, and for work that's deeply personal and rooted within your own life. So now when we talk about actually using all this dirt that we just discussed, one of the most reliable and most effective ways to work with dirt I find is in jars and bottles. And this is where dirt magic becomes tangible. This is where you can take a handful of that dirt and turn it into a working that's going to sit and do its job for you day after day, sometimes for years. Now, this obviously depends on how you specifically work with your jars and bottles. Um, I find that working with the bottle on a more like I don't just like set it and forget it. It's a lot more effective that way. The basic principle, though, is pretty simple. You layer dirt with other materials, you seal it, you charge it, and you sort of let it do its work. I continually feed it, sort of like the spirit of that bottle. But the foundation is always dirt. That's your base. That's what everything else is built on. You put your dirt in the jar first. How much depends on the jar size and what you're doing. But usually you want enough dirt to create a solid base, maybe an inch or two, depending on the jar. And then you layer other materials on top of it, or you can even mix it in with the dirt. And this is where you add your intention. You might add herbs that correspond to your work. You can add personal concerns like hair, nails, a photo, a name written on paper. You might add materials like minerals and stones. You might add salt. You can add other dirts, even if you're combining energies. I have one that has like 12 different dirts in it. You might add liquids and oils, alcohol, vinegar, water, even things that you wish to feed that spirit with if you're working that jar with a specific spirit. Now, when it comes to layering the dirt, that part can matter. You know, you can layer things deliberately, creating distinct sections, or you can mix everything together. This obviously just matters on the goal and the purpose of what the working is trying to do. Now, instead of jar work, I tend to lean more towards the bottle work just because I collect a shit ton of bottles. So I have them around. And I also love to use them as sort of like a spirit house within uh, the working that I'm doing. Bottles are going to be narrower, they're more contained, really, and they're easier to seal, at least I find, because it comes with a cap that usually fits right on it, and I love to put wax over it or burn the top of it. So it like really is super sealed, but they feel like something that's been sent away too, you or locked up. So you can use them really in this way to your advantage where you instead of having a jar that feels more like a container that are holding something in place, which bottles, which are, the classic bottle working, these are the defensive bottles filled with sharp objects, nails, pins, broken glass, anything sharp and pointy. You fill the bottle with these sharp things, you mix the dirt in sometimes, or with salt and other protective materials. And the idea of this is that any magic sent against you gets caught in the bottle, tangled up in the sharp objects, and trapped. So you bury these at the corners of your property or under your doorstep. They work for years, catching and neutralizing hostile magic. But you can also use bottles as message bottles, and they can be used for communication with spirits. You write a message on a paper or, a question, a request, a prayer, and you seal it in a bottle along with materials that correspond with what you're asking for. Now, when it comes to actually releasing your message, obviously, don't litter. Don't go bury this bottle or leave glass anywhere, or go and put it in the ocean. But if you do choose to bury it, make sure you keep track of where it is. You can always come and dig it up and make sure it's on your own property. Um, yeah, just keep that in mind. But really, the idea is that, the bottle carries your message to the spirits. And your answers might come back, in all sorts of different ways. They can come back in dreams or through synchronicities or through astral work. Once you've sent the message bottle, there are terms that you can even disclose on how you would like to receive your answer back. Okay, so now when it comes to dirt being a tag lock. So if you don't already, a tag lock is a personal concern, which is something that connects you to a specific person or situation, like hair, nails, blood, clothing, photo, a name written in someone's handwriting. These can all be used as tag locks. They're connections. They're ways of targeting your magic at a specific person or situation rather than working generally. And these obviously can be used for good or bad. You can use them for yourself, for um, kind of like a self-improvement working or tag locks to specific places. However, dirt can absolutely function as a tag lock, especially dirt from a specific person's property or space. Dirt becomes this sort of tag lock when it carries a connection to a specific person or place. If you gather dirt from someone's doorstep, that dirt carries their energy. People walk on that dirt and their energy settles into it. Their sort of essence is used within it. So if you gather dirt from someone's yard, from where they spend time, from the ground they walk on regularly, that dirt is connected to them. It's absorbed their presence. And that's why dirt from somebody else's property can be so powerful for targeted work. You're not just using the dirt as a general material if you can't get your hands on any other sort of tag lock. Dirt is a unseen kind of creative way to use that. So this same principle obviously can apply to dirt from a specific place that's connected to a situation. Once you have dirt from someone's property or a specific property of an entity as a whole, like say the bank or um, I don't know, whatever your situation is, the more common way is to combine it with other personal concerns. I will keep it pretty simple here, but you can obviously use dirt tag locks in poppets. You can create a doll that represents that person and do very poppety things. You can use the dirt tag locks in freezer work. You can put the dirt in a container with water, freeze it, the person's situation or the person itself then becomes frozen, can't move forward, they can't act, and they're kind of held in this stasis. And you can also use dirt tag locks in burial work. You can literally, like, sympathetically bury the dirt along with the other materials, and the dirt then breaks down into the earth, and the working sort of activates. This is more of a slow work, but it is very powerful. Obviously, before talking about more binding and more of the profane things you can do with dirt, uh, this is for entertainment purposes only. No, but really, working with someone's dirt without their knowledge or consent is serious. And if you are a seasoned or experienced practitioner, you should already know that these sort of things can carry consequences and should only be used if all other forms of magic have been exhausted. So, if you are going to use this sort of dirt to even protect yourself from someone who's harming you, gathering the dirt from that specific property and using it in protective working is justified. And if you're doing justice work, if someone has wronged you or you're using the dirt to ensure they face consequences, that can be seen, I guess, as a little bit different from just crossing someone because you're mad at them, which obviously you shouldn't do. But there's a line, and you need to know where that line is. Now, for binding work, using someone's dirt tag lock is more serious. You are restricting them. You're limiting their freedom. You need to have a damn good reason. They need to be actively harming you or someone you care about, and they need to be a genuine threat. But binding someone just because you don't like them or because you're angry at them is not okay. But baneful work, using someone's dirt tag lock, is, you know, pretty serious, especially because nowadays, like, gathering things like saliva or hair or fingernails, all those sort of traditional things, is not always the easiest. So dirt, when it comes to the more profane work, is more under the radar, and it's important to understand its uh, power. So I won't go over all the other dirts that I already have. I'm trusting that you can use your creative little minds to figure out what the more baneful ways you can use all those dirts for just might be. However, a more common method for using this sort of dirt that someone walks on is hot foot powder. And this is language that is obviously used in conjure or root work, but adjacent practices, without tiptoeing around any traditions that you don't belong in, um, have been adapting this sort of powder for many, many years. Now, when it comes to the actual act of making this powder that works in this way, it is to place dirt and crossing materials in a specific location where someone will encounter it. And you're placing dirt mixed with crossing materials such as chili pepper, salt, broken glass, nails, or any even like Mars oil, like war water or war oil, whatever really corresponds to what you're trying to do in a location where they will encounter it. This can be things like their doorstep, their path, somewhere where they maybe walk regularly. And the idea is to uh, sort of create this trap, I guess, on an invisible level. When they step on it, they walk through it, the work activates. The crossing takes effect. It's kind of like a tripwire, but invisible and in the ether. Their luck turns, obstacles appear, confessions set in, confusion, consequences manifest, and many, many more, depending on what your goal is. But, you can lay it as a line of dirt and materials across the doorstep or path. Some lay it in a pile, some mix it into the dirt that's already there, so it's like not obvious. The method depends on really what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, and how subtle you need to be. So when you're doing this, obviously do it with full knowledge that you are sending trouble. And another method is going back to that jar work when you are binding or crossing someone. Binding is this sort of restriction, and holding someone or something in that place, and crossing is sort of introducing the trouble. Okay, so finally, to start to wrap this up, away from the baneful stuff, let's talk about the sort of grounding elements of using dirt, because that's pretty fucking obvious, right? Dirt, earth, it helps you ground. But there's more to it than you might just think. Dirt brings you back down. It has the ability to anchor you. It has the ability to remind you that you are a part of Earth, that you have a foundation, and that you're not just drifting. One of the most underrated uses for dirt is literally grounding energy that doesn't belong to you. So if you've absorbed someone else's emotions, someone else's trauma, someone else's energy, dirt can help you discharge it. You can take dirt and hold it while you consciously move that foreign energy through your body and back into the earth. And the dirt again acts as this conduit. You're using the ground itself as a sink for energy that needs to go somewhere. And some practitioners can do this by standing barefoot on dirt and visualizing unwanted energy going down through their feet, through their legs. Very the traditional grounding visualizations. But you can also use this advantage to ground decisions. When you're facing a choice and you need clarity, you can work with dirt to anchor yourself in what you actually want versus what you think you should want. You might gather dirt from a place that represents each option. Again, crossroads dirt can be really useful for this if you can't find a specific place, or if there's not a place that's connected to these options. But you work with both energies here. You work with both darts. You hold both, you feel both, you let the dirt help you feel into which one is actually grounded in your truth. And you can choose to use this in any sort of working you really want. And you can essentially make the goal to feel which one is real, which one aligns with you, and which one really feels like it belongs to you. And this is dirt work that is really used as a tool for discernment, using the energies from the earth's stability to help you figure out what is actually stable for you at the moment and what is rooted in your values versus what is just noise. So, dirt can connect you to your ancestors in ways that go beyond just honoring them. You can use dirt to ground yourself in your lineage, to feel the weight of your family history, to understand yourself as a part of a long line of people. Gathering dirt from places your ancestors lived, if you can't directly, again, get it from their graves, dirt from their homeland, or even old properties that you know you had some sort of connection to. Dirt from where they've had significant moments in their life happen, like maybe where your grandparents were married, or a hospital someone was born at. So there's really many ways to have this help you ground, even a manifestation. It can take something that's still ethereal, still potential, and make it real. If you've been doing manifestation work, visualization work, and intention setting, use the dirt to ground it, to literally manifest it into reality. So then finally, there is grief, which is one of the most destabilizing emotions. It can make you feel like you're floating, like you're not connected to anything, like the ground has disappeared beneath you. But dirt can help with grief. And the grief can have a connection to any sort of grief. It could be through ego death, it could be through actual death, through a family member. Sometimes spiritual experiences can be destabilizing. Well, most of the time they can be. You have a vision, a connection with spirits, an opening into other realms, and then you come back to regular life and it feels jarring. It feels like you're not fully there. And besides just the old drink something and eat a piece of chocolate, dirt can help ground you back into your body, back into the physical world, and back into your regular life. You can hold the dirt after intense spiritual work or have a specific dirt that you actually use this for, create an altar for it or create like a shoe box filled with this dirt and other materia that go along with this specific purpose. This is important work because spiritual experiences that aren't grounded can actually be very destabilizing, not just experienced that way, but they can start to actually manifest into a very destabilized life. And they can make you feel very disconnected from reality. So just remember that dirt is also an anchor and can be used for many, many self improvement work when it comes to magic. So yeah, that's dirt. That's what it is, where it comes from, how, well, not where it comes from. I guess we will never know where the dirt actually comes from, but how to work with it. And, from grounding yourself from being a mess to doing serious baneful work, dirt is there and it is accessible. It's reliable, and the best part is people have been working with it for generations and it will continue to keep working. And really, I think we've forgotten just how powerful it is because it's so common. And I just really wanted to put a magnifying glass to it today. So we walk on it every day. We don't think twice about it. We think we need something fancier, especially in this witchcraft niche. I think it is so common to see people chasing all these exotic things, that are nowhere near where you actually live. And something just feels more magical than the earth, but that just isn't true. As I've gone through this path for quite a while now, I've really discovered that the most powerful magic is often the most simplest magic. And dirt doesn't care about your experience level or your lineage or your credentials. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor. It just works. It's the magic of people who had nothing but the ground beneath their feet and turned it into power. So, have fun. Go play in the mud. Go gather some dirt. Pay attention to where it comes from. Speak to the place. Leave an offering and build a relationship with the earth and then use it. Use it however you need to use it, or just hoard jars of dirt from interesting places because you might just need it one day. But thank you all for listening. I'm so grateful for everyone who tunes in. And, I really can't wait to see you back here next time. I'm very excited to start some more adventures when it comes to the podcast. And I hope you all can take a peek at my Patreon that I am starting. It's very exciting. But wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, day, or night. I have a very exciting announcement about me starting a Patreon, so I will leave a link now in my description and the show notes, and I hope you can all go check it out. Obviously, there's a lot of things I need to work on for it, but I am very, very, very excited to bring a lot of content there. Um, yep, this whole podcast thing has just really been pulling me deeper and deeper, and I think it's about time. So, thank you again.